I'm Jammer, and welcome back to another Animal Crossing New Horizons video. The other day, we started talking about a lot of the missing features we've still yet to see here in New Horizons. Different characters, shops, and other things that we still have yet to see in any of the footage from the direct, trailers, as well as the footage from the demo at Pax East. So today, in part 2, will be a continuation of that list, and if you haven't already checked out part 1, I definitely encourage you to do so. We'll be rounding out a rest of the couple of shops and characters, in addition to other features, items, and other game mechanics that have been typical to Animal Crossing series past that we still have yet to see here. But before we get started, Mr. YouTube said I had to mention this at the beginning of the video, so if you are new here, perhaps consider subscribing. It's free, you can always change your mind later, and of course you can expect tons more on Animal Crossing New Horizons content. You will not be disappointed. Anyways, with that out of the way, thanks for listening to that. Without further ado, let's get started. A really important shop in New Leaf was the Dream Suite, and its owner being Luna. The reason this was such a cool feature, because you could basically save a copy of what your town looked like currently at that moment, and you could share it publicly with the world, so people could come and view your town and kind of have an experience of what your town looked like, and they didn't have to be your friend visiting or anything like that. It was a great way to share your town and be able to tour other people's villages around the world. And so far, there's been no confirmation of any sort of feature like that returning. Although with the inclusion of 8-player multiplayer and the bigger focus on multiplayer here in New Horizons, in that case, maybe I could understand why the Dream Suite doesn't make its return. Because of the bigger emphasis, of course, like I just mentioned, on 8-player multiplayer. So there's opportunity for more people to be playing together at the same time in the same towns. But it was still such a cool feature to be able to save a copy of your town at a certain time frame and being able to share that publicly with anyone to want to visit whenever they want. It was a great way to showcase the design of your village, as well as how you decorated your home. So it is a feature that would be cool to still have in New Horizons, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Another shop introduced in New Leaf was the Garden Shop, whose owner was Leaf. He was eventually adopted to be kind of inside of Nookington's when that shop kind of expanded. It was a shop dedicated to all your gardening needs, selling fertilizer, flowers, tree saplings, but the biggest new addition being bushes. So I don't want to jump ahead too much, but that is something I'll talk about in a bit. From what we've seen in New Horizons, you can buy flower packets and saplings from the Nook shops already, so there really doesn't seem to be much need for the Garden Shop again. I could see this character potentially being repurposed as a holiday. Maybe he could fill the role of a spring cleaning character, or even he could be the character that celebrates Earth Day. There isn't really much need to have a dedicated shop for gardening alone in this game. It's a lot more convenient and it makes sense to just have those items included in Nook's Cranny. Now, a big one that people have missed for the longest time is the Observatory. This was a shop that was added on to the museum. Celeste was the owner, and she let you look through the telescope, where then you could look up into the night sky. You could connect the dots of different stars to make constellations for your village. And what was kind of neat is if you visited a friend's village and they had a constellation up there, up in the sky, occasionally that same constellation would transfer over to your village, so then you could be sharing kind of the same night sky. It was a cool little feature that didn't return in New Leaf and seems to be omitted here in New Horizons as well. We've already seen that Celeste does in fact make a return, and she starts anyways as a traveling character, as we've seen in the direct footage, but we've also gotten confirmation from a Nintendo rep talking about that Celeste will be taking over the museum at nighttime, so Blathers finally gets his good night rest, because that poor guy's been manning that museum 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of his life. No wonder that guy can't get any sleep. So with her helping out in the museum, it probably means the Observatory won't be making its return in New Horizons either. But here's a shop that kind of has been confirmed for New Horizons, and that is of course the HHA, or the Happy Home Academy. In recent years, Lyle has been the one typically associated with it, in addition to his niece Lottie. The HHA is the one that rates your home, scoring it based on points of certain furniture you have in the rooms, and you can get little rewards here and there. We actually have had confirmation from footage from Pax East of a townsfolk talking about prepping their house for the HHA visiting tomorrow, so we know that the HHA in some form will be returning in New Horizons. But what we don't know is if it'll be a physical shop you can visit again. In addition to Lyle and Lottie, Digby was also associated with the HHA, but he did more the homes showcase, and that was in New Leaf, where you could use Street Pass that would download other people's homes that you passed by on the street so you could view at a later date. Because the Switch has no such functionality, if Digby makes his return, I'm sure he would have another entirely new role. So like I said, we do know that the HHA will be returning in some form, but the question for now anyways is, will these characters be returning, and in what form will the shop even take? So beyond shops, there have been a couple of other characters that have just been outright replaced here in New Horizons. When it comes to the fishing tournament and the bug off, we have the new characters CJ and Flick respectively. In previous titles, those were hosted by Chip and Nat, and so far it looks like they've been just kind of replaced. And another traveling character was of course Joanne, where she sold the turnips once a week, and you could play the stock market. In New Horizons, however, that character is now replaced with Daisy May, a cute and absolutely adorable little hog. So with these new faces taking over the roles of these previous old characters, it probably looks that these old characters won't be making a return in New Horizons. I'd love to see them like visit every once in a while and talk about, oh, I remember when I used to do that. You know, like something like reminiscing on how they used to do the bug off or how she used to sell turnips, you know. Or maybe like if the cafe returns in some form, they could be one of the traveling characters that comes in and gets a cup of coffee at the cafe. So then you can like talk with them and reminisce about the nostalgia of them returning. That'd be a cool way to still represent them, but other than that, those characters really have no function in the game since, you know, there's now new characters doing their old jobs. And speaking of traveling characters, there are still a handful of ones we haven't seen so far, and I don't think that necessarily deconfirms that they wouldn't be in the game. I think what is more likely is that these will just be characters we'll discover while playing New Horizons, and it makes sense that they didn't show them all off in the trailer. Characters such as Gracie, Wendell, Pascal, Phineas, Katrina, Katie and Caitlin, Blanca. All these characters serve different roles throughout the series, but all have been typically like traveling characters that all had unique interaction. Gracie, of course, giving you designer clothing, Wendell giving you patterns, Pascal kind of just telling you proverbs and poems, I guess. Phineas used to be the balloon man, and then in New Leaf, he would give you rewards based on the achievements you completed. Katrina, of course, telling fortunes, and she did in fact get her own permanent shop in New Leaf anyways. But I wouldn't be surprised if she returns as just another traveling character. Katie and Caitlin would separately appear in sometimes your town and a friend's town, and it would be up to you to play again with your friends and bring them together. And then of course Blanca, the faceless cat that you could draw silly faces on. She recently took up the role of being the host of the April Fool's Day Festival. So before we wrap things up, there's a couple of like features and other items I do want to mention that we still have seen really nothing about for New Horizons. A couple of you mentioned some things from the original GameCube game, like kicking sports balls around, and we have seen a collection of different balls throughout the trailers and screenshots, but so far it looks like they are just stationary furniture items. Another thing to mention is the Nook raffle. I mean, that has never returned since the original GameCube game, but it was a kind of cool way to wrap up the month and potentially win fun little rewards. But I think the more key things that are missing so far are as follows. First off, the wetsuit tool item. One of the most amazing features in New Leaf. For years in the Animal Crossing series, I've always wanted to be able to swim in the ocean. And having that be a feature in New Leaf absolutely blew my mind. I had so much fun with it at the beginning, but of course, once you've kind of collected all the deep diving fish that you need to collect for the museum, the feature itself does kind of run its course, and admittedly, there isn't as much to do out there as you might expect. And from what we've seen of the encyclopedia so far, there really has been no tab for the deep sea fish or the diving suit collectibles like how it had its own tab in New Leaf. Looks like the wetsuit might actually not make its return. It could be because that now you can access the ocean from all four sides of your village, and perhaps maybe having that little swim boundary surrounding your island would be a little weird and restrictive, I guess. But same time with this island aesthetic, the fact that you can't go in the water anymore, like it feels kind of weird. The other thing I noticed we haven't seen anything so far is of course gyroids, a staple of the series, the little clay characters that would dance to music and make funny little noises. Every time we've seen something buried in the ground in any of the footage so far, it's always just been a fossil. But at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, we haven't seen the pitfall either, so the other two options of things you could dig up, they could potentially still be hiding for then when the game fully releases, you could discover on your own. I would be genuinely surprised if gyroids didn't make their return because they've been a staple of the series, and it's something I'd never question to not return. But never even seeing it once in any villager's home so far, or placed on the ground, does make me start to question if they will return. They better though, they better. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier in this video, bushes have yet to make their return either. A staple of Leaf's shop, and it was one of the coolest new additions in New Leaf of stuff you can plant in your village. It was really cool because you could put them all next to each other, so you could kind of make a row of them in a line. One of the fun parts about it is based on the season that it was, it would have visual differences. Sometimes they'd bud flowers or the leaf color would change as well. It added a lot of variety to the landscape. Of course, in New Horizons, there's already so much you can put on the ground, especially with the inclusion of like walls and street lamps and whatnot. But we've seen no evidence of bushes making the return in any way, so perhaps it's another feature that might not be making it here in New Horizons. So that is all I came up with so far for all the features we have yet to see in New Horizons. But if I missed anything, or if there's any features you specifically are really hoping that will still be in New Horizons from Series Pass, please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big awesome like, and if you haven't already, definitely subscribe for tons more on Animal Crossing New Horizons. So thank you all again so much for 50,000 subscribers. Whether you're new to the channel or have been here a long time, I appreciate you all so much. It's going to be so much fun when the game fully releases and all the fun stuff we're going to come up with as our community continues to grow. So thanks again, guys, so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya!